The Israeli strike killed 22, including 13 children who were among the displaced people using the school as a shelter.
More than 40,000 Palestinians have been killed since Israel launched its war.
This brutal civil war has raged here for almost a decade, and much of it without the world's attention.
There is a moment of deep crisis around the world where the very survival of democracy is under threat. The United States' support for abusive regimes in the Middle East has propagated war, destruction, instability, and tremendous harm for the people of the region, while it has also undermined America's credibility and standing.
I can't recall a time in my experience where I've seen such a disconnect between our values and our actions.
The one thing we can see very clearly is that what we've been doing for the past several decades has not been working, and we think it's time to fix it. Dawn is a brave and fearless organization that does not shy away from difficult fights. Our goal is to end U.S. support for tyranny and oppression in the Middle East.
Dawn is leading the calls for Trump to be investigated.
The fact that there's no law prohibiting a foreign government from paying a former president mere months after he leaves office shows how weak our conflict of interest laws are and the dangers that this subjects our democracy to.
We speak to witnesses, we gather physical evidence, we gather court records to push for sanctions against the abusers. One of our recommendations was to find a new mechanism to sanction violent Israeli settlers who are undermining peace and security in the West Bank. And that's exactly what the Biden administration did.
President Biden has released an executive order now targeting Jewish settlers in the West Bank who've been attacking Palestinians.
This includes unprecedented levels of violence by Israeli extremist settlers.
We submitted detailed dossiers on various violent Israeli settlers and then saw the Biden administration proceed to sanction several of them. For the first time, the United States has taken active sanction measures against Israelis for violence committed against Palestinians. We need to change people's understandings of the costs and consequences of U.S. support for dictatorships in the region. That means educating the public, talking to the foreign policy community itself, and of course, targeting the elected officials as well. We're actively pushing to change laws in the United States that allow foreign governments and their agents to influence, corrupt, and undermine our political system. And we're pushing the administration itself to change its approach and policies with specific countries in the region.
We have to rethink the United States engagement with dictatorships, with human rights abusers. We have to stop supporting them with our weapons and with our political capital.
We were the first organization to call for a ceasefire in Gaza because we knew that the outcome would be exactly what we're seeing now.
What we need right now is a ceasefire. The United States can and should use its leverage to achieve that.
We have pushed the U.S. government to think about the ways in which the Saudi government is influencing and undermining U.S. security interests through its extensive business ventures and acquisitions in the United States. And that's exactly what the Senate Investigations Committee has started to do.
Today's hearing is about how a brutal, repressive regime can buy influence, indeed even take over a cherished American institution.
Dawn has managed to position itself as a leading voice on U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East. And we try to expand the boundaries on what the foreign policy community will say, think about, and talk about.
Gaza now, we're joined by former State Department Director Josh Paul.
We serve as an institutional home for political activists and political exiles from the Middle East and North Africa to ensure that their experiences are part of the dialogue about U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East.
40 doctors killed, 18 nurses.
Our fight is not one of equal resources, but we also know that the people are on our side. We depend on support from individuals and institutions who believe that it's time for a change in U.S. policy in the Middle East. What's at stake is no longer just democracy and human rights in the Middle East, but also our own rights and freedoms here in America.